Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 4:07 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program this hour, Philip Wegmann, White House reporter for Real Clear Politics, is here at 4:30. And then at 5 o'clock, from Do No Harm, Beth Serio joins us to talk about just how many children over the last few years have had these so-called gender surgeries performed on them. And the number is, I'll just be honest, it's shocking, and Beth will explain what's happening here. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. I was just asking a good friend in North Carolina, is it just me? Is it just me, or is Roy Cooper awful at this? The North Carolina governor, is he just terrible at giving us any details on Hurricane Helene? Because as it stands right now, I mean, we'll see what happens in the end in terms of this death toll from Hurricane Milton that just blew across Florida. But right now, the official number is 5 dead. They say from the tornadoes, actually, that struck the state first. But meanwhile, in North Carolina, Western North Carolina, we're talking well over 200 people dead from Hurricane Helene. And we still have no idea how many people are missing. You have politicians out there who claim that it could be upwards of 1,000 people missing. What? Don't you feel like it's bizarre how little urgency there is around this issue? Getting to the bottom of it? It's so crazy. And the media, they've moved on. The broader media, they've moved on. It just seems really important because I keep thinking, I'm sitting here thinking, what happened in Western North Carolina? It feels like Pompeii or something. Like whole communities covered and destroyed, and everyone's just moving on. Oh, yeah, remember when that happened? It's crazy. And he was telling me, my buddy in North Carolina, my old boss, actually, from many years ago, early, my first radio job. He's still there. He's still doing it. Owns these radio stations. He's got this newspaper. He covers the news for a living. And he's telling me that we're seeing so much more of Ron DeSantis than we ever see of Roy Cooper right now. Right now, we're seeing way more of Florida's governor than we are of our own governor in North Carolina. And that his press office has been almost completely silent. And it's just been a joke. He said that as of Monday, they were saying, as of Monday of this week, hundreds of people were reported missing. He said he saw one number of 600, but it's crazy. It's crazy. So that seems like a giant, open, very important question. What is happening in our own country? No? Maybe we need to send some more relief to Ukraine. Maybe that'll make me feel better. Let's just send some money. That'll take care of everything. Today, Alejandro Mayorkas was doing yet another press stunt for the Biden-Harris administration, and he was confronted by Fox News' Jacquie Heinrich. Corinne was handing out the questions, I believe, and she said, "Okay, Jacquie, you go, Jacquie." Well, that was a mistake because Jacquie had real questions, and Alejandro Mayorkas refused to answer them. It's excruciating to listen to the way he blockades these questions, and they're legitimate, completely legitimate. And it's all about this guy, this Afghan national who was just arrested by the feds, who the FBI says was plotting a terror attack on Election Day here in the United States. And apparently now there's some massive discrepancies within the federal government about the way they're describing how he got into the country in the first place. Because you understand what's going on here. This is a game of hot potato. Nobody wants credit for having brought him in. Donald Trump was warning. People like my guest yesterday, Sean Davis, was warning. So many were warning, hey, we're just going to bring in tons of people from Afghanistan in the midst of this chaotic collapse. We've got so many people dead in 2021, and we're just rushing people into our country. What kind of vetting process are we doing? Will they be a threat to us? How do we know that they won't be? And the Biden administration kept promising, oh, no, don't you worry. No, we're vetting everybody. The intel community is looking into them. We're doing great background checks. Everybody's going to be completely safe. They're going to be your friendly neighbor. It's going to be totally fine. Don't worry. We've got it. And now they're telling us in the waning weeks of the election, oops, one of the people we brought in was ready to conduct a terror attack on Election Day 2024. So now all of the various departments are saying it's not our fault. Not our fault. How did this guy get in? Listen to Jacquie Heinrich summarize the ongoing debate now inside of the Biden administration, and Alejandro Mayorkas try and duck it entirely.
Mr. Secretary, it's Jacquie Heinrich from Fox. I want to ask you about a different story. This Afghan national who was working for the CIA in Afghanistan was arrested for planning an election day terror plot. He was brought to the U.S. after Afghanistan collapsed. Your agency says as part of the SIV program. The State Department
Special Interest Visa
is telling us he was not part of the SIV program, which had strenuous vetting. They say he was never issued an SIV or immigrant visa, and DHS paroled him into the U.S. They further expect the court document to be updated to reflect this from the DOJ side. So, Mr. Secretary, how was this man brought into the U.S.? What screening did he undergo? What did he apply for to get here?
Jackie, I'm here in North Carolina communicating with the individuals who are still conducting search and rescue operations. Over 200 people have lost their lives in Hurricane Helene. We have reports that at least 10 individuals have lost their lives as a result of Hurricane Milton. I'd be very pleased to answer your question in a different setting, but we're here to talk about emergencies and the support that we can deliver to people in desperate need.
Your question is not important, says Alejandro Mayorkas. Not as important as dealing with these storms. I'm sorry. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a terror attack we're talking about. A would-be terror attack. How did that occur? I think that ranks up there in terms of the types of priorities that you might want to get to the bottom of. And if you're the DHS secretary, and if you were genuinely interested in protecting the homeland, you would have all sorts of ready answers to that question. How did he get in? Did you parole him in, or did he come in under the special immigrant visa program? Which was it? Seems kind of important that we get to the bottom of how terrorists get into the country. Alejandro Mayorkas pats her on the head and says, oh, no, we've got much more important things to deal with.
Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, but we're getting conflicting answers from your agency and from the State Department about a man who was arrested for an election day terror plot. How do you not have those answers prepared?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm so glad she asked it that way. How are you so weak? How is it possible that you are this weak?
Jackie, that's not what I said. What I said is I'd be pleased to discuss this issue.
He wouldn't be pleased to discuss it. He would not. These are passive-aggressive answers. These are feminine answers from Alejandro Mayorkas. He's not giving clear, crisp answers. He's evading and then acting like he's happy about it. And I'd be so pleased to talk with you in a different setting. No, he wouldn't. He doesn't want to talk to her at all.
At a different time, but I am here to speak about disasters that have impacted people's lives in real time, and that is a subject that I am addressing today.
Mr. Secretary, can you assure people that appropriate steps have been taken to secure the country against these kinds of threats? Because the outstanding question is whether this man was radicalized before the U.S. government brought him here or afterward. And people should be concerned about that.
Jackie, your persistence in questioning can be matched by my persistence in answers.
All right, we're going to go. Go ahead, Gabe.
Giggles. All right, we're going to go. Go ahead, Gabe. Did you notice that last answer was a complete lie? Your persistence in questioning can be matched by my persistence in answers. No, only one person is actually doing that task. She's asking questions. You're not providing answers. You should say your persistence in obstruction. That's what you're doing. You're obstructing. And you realize why, of course. It's because they got caught. There's no good political answer here. They don't have an answer for you that would redound to their political benefit. We can't sustain our power on the kind of answer that would be truthful. So I'm not going to give you any answer at all. If I told you the truth, it would hurt Democrats and their stranglehold on power. So I'm not going to. I'm not even going to bother. I'm going to patronize you. I'm going to make it seem like you don't care about hurricane victims. And then I'm going to pretend like I might answer your question in some future forum where I will be happy to do that. Just a series of lies from a guy who's been impeached for his awful, awful administration of an agency whose job is in the title of the agency to protect the homeland, he has failed abysmally. Donna's calling in from Frederick. She's on line 2. Donna, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, good afternoon, Vince. Whenever you ask these leftists like Mayorkas a question, they don't give you a word salad. They give you a turd salad. I am so sick of all the BS, and we don't need their over-bloated, ginormous agencies. The states, let's just take Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, North Carolina, on the ground, involved from day one, as well as the people. Same with Ron DeSantis. We don't need all this federal stuff. The states can stand on their own, and the people, in their own way, are doing more than the government could ever do for them, and that's what we need to realize. We need to be sovereign. No more big government BS.
I'm with you. Yeah, there's a lot of really good lessons in here, good reminders about the way this is all supposed to be set up, and I like that. They don't give us word salads; they give us turd salads, because a salad, some people like salads; they could be appetizing. A turd salad, no. That's very unappetizing. Thank you for that very evocative description. Thank you, Donna. I appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Oh man, yeah. That's where we are. That's Alejandro Mayorkas refusing to answer the question. Another reporter took a run at Coringe today about this, and says, "Hey, about the Afghan terrorist?" And says, "Hey, does the administration believe that there was adequate vetting? Considering what just happened." Listen to this.
NBC is reporting that he was a security guard for the CIA before he came to the U.S. and that he passed 2 rounds of vetting.
I just want to also emphasize something. You've heard in the course of the questioning here, this guy was a CIA guy. He worked for the CIA, they said. We worked with the CIA. I don't really even a security guard for the CIA. Okay. And so he came into the country, and now he's plotting terror attacks here? Does this give you comfort?
NBC is reporting that he was a security guard for the CIA before he came to the U.S. and that he passed 2 rounds of vetting. Does the administration believe there was adequate vetting?
So what I can say is I cannot comment on this directly because...
What I can say is I can't say anything.
Because it is an active investigation, as you know, that the Department of Justice is currently moving forward with, so I'm going to be really careful. What I can say is every Afghan national who entered the U.S. was screened and vetted by intelligence, law enforcement, counterterrorism professionals, and with every new information that emerges, if that individual could pose a threat to public safety, we take immediate action, and we take that action. And so I'm going to be not going to speak to this particular case, but I can speak more broadly, and that's the actions that we normally take. That's how we move forward.
In all of those words, didn't you just really gather that the summary is, yeah, we screwed up big time? Just like, oh, we did lots of vetting. We had everybody. We vetted. We did every possible form of vetting on this guy, and he tried to commit a terror attack in America. So it's your fault. You screwed it up. Why do we want to keep doing this? We don't. We don't want to keep doing this. Most of us don't.
Because the outstanding question is whether this man was radicalized before the U.S. government brought him here or afterward. And people should be concerned about that.
Jackie, your persistence in questioning can be matched by my persistence in answers.
Alejandro Mayorkas, still a tool. Mike's calling in from Sunshine now, line 5. Hello, Mike. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Vince, thanks for taking my call. Cringe and Mayorkas, they always have a reflex, and it's to try to figure out a way to not answer the question. And there tends to be 3 that I'm aware of. One is sources and methods, where it's under investigation, can't talk about it. A second might be, Hatch Act, can't know. They're a campaign. I don't want to be campaigning from this podium. And lastly, Mayorkas says, now's not the right time. It's kind of a heady blend of insufferable and arrogance.
Yes. And the real answer is there's only 2 actual real answers. One of them is I'm too stupid to answer this question, or if I answer it, it's going to be bad for us. Those are the actual answers.
That's correct. It's politically unsavory for me to answer the question. Yeah, exactly. And so they come up with, well, they want to keep us their reflex is to not answer the question. If they can find a way to not answer the question and educate the American people or be transparent to the American people, they will do it. They will find a way, and they have their tried and true methods.
Yeah, no, that's right. They want to censor you and then not tell you the truth. That's their plan for long-term power. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the call. He's right. The reflex is cover up, no matter what the question is. In fact, they probably, in the anticipation of the question, they're probably thinking, how do I cover this up? I don't even know what the question is yet, but how do I cover it up? Let's see. Louis in Arkansas, now line 2. Louis, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. Hey, I love listening to the show. I got caught on to watching, listening to you through the WMAL app so I could listen to Chris. You guys have got a great show.
Thank you. I'm glad I got the spillover benefit of your pursuit of Chris Plan. I like that. Thank you, Louis.
Yeah, you're just right up there with me on getting news out that nobody else would tell us. And I'm glad that I get to listen to you every day. And I just wanted to throw out there something out in the past that, I don't know, the government did to us before when they were leaving Afghanistan and the Americans that were trying to flee out of there, I seen it on the news that they were making them pay their own plane tickets to get out of there.
Yeah, and we've seen all sorts of reports on all of the Americans who were left behind in Afghanistan trying to get out of the country. Certainly all the weapons. We left everything. We're like, hey, how about this? How about we arm the Taliban as we flee? So they did that. And, of course, President Trump has been calling that out for years, saying how stupid that was, Louis. And then the people we brought in, well, it turns out at least one of them was trying to commit a terror attack on the United States. Way to go, Biden-Harris administration. Good record you have there. No wonder they're trying to cover everything up. Telling the truth would be awful for them. You might vote them out. Coming up, Philip Wegmann was challenging the White House yesterday. So we're going to bring him on to talk about that.
You see, that's the real threat to democracy, stupid people. That's the threat. Our biggest threat to democracy is stupid people.
President Trump today in Michigan at the Detroit Economic Club. Our biggest threat to democracy is stupid people. Hard to argue with that. Hey, welcome to the program. It's 4:35 here. Coming up, Beth Serio will be with us from Do No Harm, looking to stop all those stupid people from hurting children all across the country. We'll chat with her about that. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. This week, some fun Q&A with Corinne, led by Real Clear Politics' Philip Wegmann. Take a listen to this.
You're pretty consistent. You don't often speculate about hypotheticals, but today on more than one occasion, you've said that if it's true that former President Trump spoke with Vladimir Putin, then that's concerning.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, why is this administration willing to speculate about that in particular?
I said if it's true.
Speculation.
It's speculation, but if it's true, because I knew, right? We all knew that you all will have questions about for us about the national security concerns, about our thoughts about this, and so if it is indeed true, right? We're talking about President Putin here. We see what's happening in Ukraine, Russia's aggression in Ukraine. That's about democracy. That's about Ukrainians fighting for their freedom. And we've heard the former president say and lobby against the funding for Ukraine. So yeah, if it is true, it is indeed concerning because we're talking about our national security here. So we want it to be very, very clear. And so I'll leave it there.
There you go. So she engages in some wild, reckless speculation designed to hurt Trump, obviously. So then Philip asked a very obvious follow-up question. Okay, well, that was one report out of that Woodward book this week. Here's another one.
Does President Biden regret making Merrick Garland his Attorney General, as Mr. Woodward has reported?
Look, The reason I'm able to speculate, because that's a national security concern, I wanted to be very clear about that. But as I've stated many times before, there's going to be many books written about an administration. It's very much typical. And I'm just not going to comment on every specifics, every matter that comes up or any particulars that come up.
Oh, it's so completely great. And that's why I want to congratulate my next guest. Philip Wegmann joins me now, White House reporter for Real Clear Politics. Philip, good to have you with me, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you trapped her. You trapped her. You got her to speak about all sorts of idle speculation about Donald Trump, and then you asked her, like, hey, what about this other thing about Biden? And she ran away from it, Philip.
Yeah, with the Woodward book, I think what we're seeing is that what that journalist gives, he also takes away, in that there are all sorts of passages and new reporting that this White House is more than happy to amplify. For instance, the reporting that former President Trump sent COVID tests to Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. But then when they amplify that reporting, they sort of open themselves up to the other stories that are in that book. For instance, Biden's frustrations with Attorney General Merrick Garland, or the reports from the intelligence community that the Russians were as likely as 50% to use a tactical nuclear weapon in Ukraine. So all of this to say, the current administration, they're ready to pick and choose what they talk about from Mr. Woodward's reporting.
Well, sure, and it seems like the guiding principle is if it has to do with scrutinizing the Biden administration, they are very comfortable saying we can't get into speculation, or I haven't seen the reporting. But if it involves their political opponent, President Trump, they seem pretty comfortable with idle speculation.
Right, and when we're talking about the conversations between Trump and Putin, this is not just sort of idle. This is a pretty significant question. Is it possible, perhaps, that Donald Trump may have violated the Logan Act by doing diplomacy when he's not authorized to do so? I mean, that's very unlikely that anyone would bring prosecution against the former president on that front. But it's worth noting that, when he was former Vice President Biden, the current president floated the idea of using the Logan Act to prosecute then General Flynn. So, I mean, this is one of these things where, you put an asterisk in your notes and you keep a close eye on what comes later. And I thought, it was pretty interesting that this White House, they're normally pretty disciplined. They don't speculate about hypotheticals. But on the question of Donald Trump's conversations with Vladimir Putin, it was open season.
Yeah, and it's just vile behavior to treat a guy who was entrusted with the presidency as if he's some sort of traitor to the country by if he had conversations with Vladimir Putin, just assuming outright in bad faith that they were working against our interests. And remember, it was John Kerry, who now well documented, was having all sorts of secret conversations with Iran during the Trump administration. So it wouldn't be the first time that a government official or a former government official may have talked to a world leader.
Yeah, and you've got to think that there are some Biden administration officials who had their ears perk up when they heard from the podium there at the White House this condemnation of conversations between a private citizen and another world leader, because as you mentioned, there are plenty of folks in Biden's orbit, John Kerry being one of them, who did in fact talk to foreign nationals. So I think that this might, in the end, be much ado about nothing. But clearly, Vladimir Putin, he is the bad guy because of his invasion of Ukraine. He's not a very sympathetic person. He's clearly the villain. And I think that in this case, the White House saw an opportunity to argue guilt by association because of those conversations.
Well, that's what they're trying. It's the political season, of course. So they're trying to once again slander President Trump here. This is where I want to move on to Kamala Harris's attempts at getting involved in these hurricanes this week. She apparently tried to make some sort of phone call to somebody in the vicinity or the orbit of Governor Ron DeSantis. And then when she was rebuffed, she's turned it into this big thing that, oh my gosh, how insulting that he wouldn't take the vice president of the United States' phone call. But interestingly, Governor DeSantis and Joe Biden don't really care what Kamala Harris is saying. They say they have a great relationship. In fact, you asked President Biden about this, and here's how that went.
Mr. President, does Governor DeSantis need to take Vice President Harris's calls?
All I can tell you is I'm talking to Governor DeSantis. He's been very gracious. He's thanked me for all we've done. He knows what we're doing, and I think that's important.
What does that answer tell you, Philip?
My initial reaction is that it tells us either President Biden doesn't make much of Harris's complaints about the Florida governor, or he was unaware of the brouhaha between the governor and the vice president. NBC News reported after the fact that Biden was unaware. I'm a little bit skeptical because what the president told me yesterday, it wasn't the first time that he had been complimentary of DeSantis. But, if we take a step back, when it comes to hurricanes in Florida, DeSantis almost has this down to a playbook. They were pre-positioning supplies. They had a strategy for how to handle all of this. And the argument from DeSantis this entire time has been that he's already in touch with the FEMA administrator, that he has President Biden's cell phone number for when he needs it. And, oh, by the way, Harris has never reached out during any of these other hurricanes. So I think that this is sort of politics creeping into, the hurricane debate there. And I've seen some conservatives argue that what President Biden has done is almost a reverse Chris Christie to his vice president. We'll have to wait and see. But, clearly Biden has no interest in getting in between this fight of Harris and DeSantis.
Well, I do think that one of the instincts that you just laid out was correct, which is that, like, President Biden did say, before he answered your question, he did say, oh, yeah, I have a great relationship with Ron DeSantis. It's been good. We've been talking. It's been and things have been running smoothly. That means that in the intervening time between him saying that publicly and you asking yet again about it, that somebody at the White House would have come to him and said, hey, this doesn't look good for Kamala. This is not good for her campaign. So I would say it's probably worth reading into this maybe more than usual.
Yeah, either it's a significant oversight by the political teams who are on a hair trigger both in the White House and on Harris's campaign, or it's President Biden saying, look, this is one of the last things that I'm going to have to deal with as president, and I don't want politics to get involved in a legacy-making moment.
Also,
and while there's been significant criticism of the FEMA response thus far with Hurricane Helene, when it comes to Hurricane Milton, Biden seems to be on the ball. We have heard constantly from this administration, not just warnings to individuals in the path of the storm, but we've been getting, pretty significant and frequent updates, from the folks who are involved in this whole of government response.
Right. And also I think they learned the lessons in part from Hurricane Helene and how inadequate it seemed from the perspective of the public. And additionally, let's be honest, this is a big difference. Roy Cooper is a governor who really hasn't been that active on the microphone. Ron DeSantis, he's ever present. He's always talking. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's the political instincts here for the Democrats are, man, we can't be that outmaneuvered by this Republican governor.
Mm-hmm. And remember, just a year and a half ago, Vice President Harris was down in Florida taking issue with some of the education standards that he had put in place there. DeSantis felt that was an unfair attack, and certainly there's no love lost between him and the vice president. So while he's focused on the business of responding to this hurricane, it doesn't seem that he's interested in going out of his way to do a favor for a political opponent. And, he said last night on Fox News with Bret Baier that if he needed something from the vice president that he couldn't get from Biden or the FEMA administrator, that he would call. But as of right now, there's just no need.
Being at the White House, I wonder how political you sense they are being from that room? Because, we've heard from Karine Jean-Pierre so many times that, I can't do that. It's the Hatch Act. I have to be very careful. I can't engage in presidential politics. But it does feel like the entire Q&A is basically predicated upon like Trump v. Kamala. And the reporters, are asking questions related to that. And it does kind of seem like Karine Jean-Pierre is engaging on it. How do you score it?
Yeah, there's always a natural shifting of gears from the White House beat to election season, particularly when you have the incumbent running for office. Now that Biden has withdrawn, it's a bit sleepier over there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But one thing that we've seen pretty consistently is, in real time, how does President Biden account for the work of his vice president? Does she own all of the successes and none of the failures? What is it that Harris has been over the last 4 years? And I heard from Karine Jean-Pierre earlier on, after President Biden withdrew from the race, that she sees it as a comprehensive whole, that, Harris was there for the entirety of the last 4 years. And that's sort of the question that we're all trying to suss out, to understand, what is Biden doing, for Harris? How does he see her candidacy? And up until this controversy over the DeSantis phone call, we had frankly seen a pretty gracious President Biden who didn't have sour grapes, who was willing to go on the campaign trail for Harris, to support her, to send his staff to, support and work with her. I think this is one of the rare moments where there's some daylight between the two of them, and that's why it caught so many reporters' interest.
Yeah, and this week she answered now multiple questions from very friendly interviewers about what's the difference between you and Biden, and she said there is no difference. We've been I wouldn't change a thing about the Biden administration, which is a horrifying answer, candidly, because there were a lot of disastrous things that should have been changed, and she's not separating herself from him. I have to believe, Philip Wegmann, that if you're a part of Kamala's campaign, you must have been slapping your forehead with that answer, because the messaging about Kamala's campaign has been, what? Turn the page. Turn the page. It's a new generation of leadership, really going out of your way to act like you're not even aware who Joe Biden is. I'm a completely different person. What do you make of it?
Yeah, at the Democratic convention, certainly after President Biden gave his farewell address, you had former President Obama mention Biden in passing. I think his former VP got 2 or 3 paragraphs in an Obama speech. And Harris mentioned Biden very briefly. He is a bit of baggage when you are trying to present a new way forward and split with the past. But since then, we've seen Harris sort of embrace Biden with open arms. And what that tells me, and perhaps, this will be put to the test in the coming weeks, is Harris, they are not necessarily afraid of it being a, Biden-Harris referendum on their administration versus, Trump, because if they can keep the focus on his time in office and then their record sort of recedes, then they think that they might be in good shape. And certainly, everything that we're seeing in polling currently indicates that this is, coming down to a race where whichever side can get their base out the most wins. Yeah,
and I'm sitting here, I'm wondering how annoyed Joe Biden is with Kamala Harris. And I feel like that may be an animating factor here that is underappreciated. But I guess maybe we'll find out. Maybe the tell-alls will come out.
We'll have to wait
for
the next Woodward book.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, we'll wait for that. Or the next Philip Wegmann book. Thank you, sir. Good to talk to you. To the phones we go. Shane is calling in from Alexandria, line 1. Hello, Shane. You're on the Vince Callané Show.
Hey, Vince. How are you?
Good, sir.
So I wanted to make the point regarding what you were talking about before. The Woodward book stuff just doesn't make sense, because if people recall the Sergei Kislyak incident, many national security reporters, officials on TV all said, Lieutenant General Flynn.
Not the author, the general, yes.
Right. General Flynn would have known that the call was being intercepted. and therefore there was no violation. There was certainly no violation of the Hatch Act, anything like that. And so Donald Trump, if he had taken a call from Vladimir Putin, our national security officials certainly likely would have leaked it by now.
Right.
Someone in the Kamala camp would be, secretly confirming to the New York Times that it was true. None of it really makes sense. And then, further with the Woodward book, any diplomat in Washington, D.C. could have easily gotten their hands on COVID tests here in the United States and sent those back to Russia.
Right.
Easier than taking ones from Trump.
All of the reasons why you're skeptical are great reasons to be skeptical. You're right. The Biden administration has never shown a capacity for restraint. They will abuse all of their power in order to hurt their political opponents. Totally true, which suggests that it's probably not true. But let me tell you, Shane, I don't care if Trump was on the phone with Putin. I don't care at all.
Neither do I.
Because I know Trump is fighting for my interests, and I don't care if he sent him Abbott testing supplies.
Right.
Because I know that's a great diplomatic move.
The existence of a call doesn't mean negative things.
Yeah, of course not. But in this crazy world we live in, the left would use it for that. No question. Yeah, good insight, Shane. That's a smart point. All right, hold on. Coming up, Beth Serio talks to us from Do No Harm. Her group has discovered that a lot of children have been abused by the left these last few years. The details ahead.